Morning, YouTube. Well, since last time, I've been kind of on a roll with this reading and just kind of want to keep going. Especially since this is officially the starting point of every chapter being incredibly long, so I'm not going to waste any time. Let's knock this one out. Thanks again for listening. Chapter the 8th. Publicity Stunt. Nearly 32 hours after Vinyl's first night at Fluttershy's cottage, she sat outside around mid-afternoon. Something was going to happen soon. She could feel it in her horn. Fluttershy stepped out from the cottage and blinked rapidly as the sunlight assaulted her face. Fluttershy turned and was startled when she saw Vinyl.
Oh, hi, Vinyl,
she said, blushing and pawing at the grass. She was still very embarrassed about that night 2 days ago when she had kissed Vinyl. "Hey, Fluttershy," Vinyl said with a smile.
How are you feeling?"
the Pegasus asked. "I'm all right," Vinyl replied, looking down at the bandages around her torso.
Oh, that's good,
Fluttershy squeaked. The two sat in silence. They did that quite often. Fluttershy was about to say something when two large white Pegasus stallions came over a hill, wearing royal armor and carrying large spears. Fluttershy squealed nervously, and Vinyl placed her hoof on the yellow pony's shoulder. The two royal guards approached the small cottage, and one of them addressed Fluttershy. "Miss Fluttershy, is it?" he said. Fluttershy shut her eyes and squeaked in fright. "Yeah, she's Fluttershy," Vinyl said, wrapping an arm around the frightened Pegasus. "We understand that you are accommodating a one great and powerful Trixie." He looked to Fluttershy inquisitively. Fluttershy squealed again and hid her face from the guards. "Trixie's inside. What do you need with her?" Vinyl asked, cocking an eyebrow. The day before, Trixie had awoken from her comatose state and had lost all memory of her incident with Vinyl. Vinyl still held a grudge against her, though. The bullet in her leg still hurt like a bitch. Trixie popped her head out of the door as her name was mentioned.
"Did some pony call for the great and powerful Trixie?"
she said obnoxiously with a smirk. The guards snapped their heads to Trixie. "You're Trixie, then?" one of the guards asked.
"The great and powerful Trixie, thank you very much,"
Trixie said, scoffing. The two royal guards lowered their spears and pointed them directly at Trixie's throat. Fluttershy gasped and began to cry.
What are you doing?"
Trixie said, eyes growing wide. "You're under arrest by the order of Her Majesty Princess Celestia," one of the guards stated, jabbing the point of his spear at Trixie.
Under arrest? Whatever for?"
Trixie questioned, her voice beginning to shake with fear. "The princess requires no explanation. You will be coming with us alive or dead," the guard said dryly.
"No, you can't take her. She's hurt. She needs
Fluttershy began, but she was stopped mid-sentence as one of the guards knocked her to the floor with the butt of his spear. "Stay out of this!" he barked, turning back to Trixie. "Now come with us, Miss Trixie," he said. Vinyl looked down at Fluttershy, who was lying on the ground sobbing. She began to get angry.
"Hey, that was uncalled for!"
Vinyl screamed, stepping in front of Trixie. The guard glared at Vinyl, and Vinyl glared back. "I said." He swung the spear back and struck Vinyl across the face, sending her spiraling into the floor. Her stitches tore open, and blood began to leak out of her wound. "Stay out of it!" he spat at Vinyl. Fluttershy cried out and rushed to Vinyl's side as the two guards dragged Trixie off, who was screaming her head off.
"You'll get grass stains on my cloak!"
Vinyl heard Trixie yell as she was dragged away. Vinyl began to feel dizzy, and her hearing started to bug out.
"Vinyl! Oh no! Vinyl, stay awake! I'll be right back! Oh my! Oh no!"
Fluttershy said, running inside her home. Vinyl stared up at the orange sky above her. Strange. It seemed so peaceful. Even as her blood spilled all over the grass, she felt so serene. Fluttershy busted out of her door, wicker basket of first aid supplies in her mouth. She was saying something, but Vinyl couldn't hear her. Vinyl could feel Fluttershy's tears fall onto her cheeks as the Pegasus sewed her chest closed. Vinyl blacked out as Fluttershy began to wrap the wound, still crying her cute blue eyes out. Vinyl awoke with a start to the sound of Fluttershy crying. "Fluttershy, what's wrong?" she mumbled groggily.
"It's Trixie!"
Fluttershy wailed. "Trixie? What about her?" Vinyl asked, rubbing her eyes.
There.
Fluttershy began to cry again loudly as she tried to piece together a comprehensible sentence. "Fluttershy, calm down. What's wrong with Trixie?" Vinyl said, getting up from the sofa she had been lying on. She placed her hoof on Vinyl's shoulder, and the pony stopped sobbing.
"Trixie's going to be executed,"
she finally whimpered. Deep inside, Vinyl was ecstatic, but she didn't want Fluttershy to see that side of her. That's terrible," Vinyl said. "Wait, why?" she questioned. Trixie had been out of it the whole time she'd been in Ponyville. What could she have done? An execution was way too much for the Ursa incident, and that was too long ago anyway.
"Princess Celestia announced earlier today."
Fluttershy stopped and wiped a stream of tears from her cheek.
"Trixie was trying to kill Twilight."
The Pegasus burst into tears yet again, burying her face in Vinyl's shoulder. So Twilight knew some pony was after her. Vinyl was just happy that Twilight hadn't figured out it was her. Vinyl grinned at the thought of Trixie being executed publicly.
"Celestia also said that every pony was to be present to witness the—"
Fluttershy wailed loudly, and Vinyl patted her on the back. Her heart began to beat faster as she imagined Trixie's headless body lying on a stage with blood pouring out of it. Her mouth began to water a little, but she gulped and returned to consoling Fluttershy. Several hours later, Vinyl was making her way to the town square of Ponyville, her arm around Fluttershy for comfort. From Fluttershy's cottage they saw a large crowd of Ponyville residents gathering at the center of town, which had a large wooden stage and a guillotine mounted on it. The sight of the guillotine made Vinyl get all jittery, but she ignored it. Fluttershy was absolutely distraught, her mane was a mess, and her eyes seemed to be completely devoid of life. The poor Pegasus had been through so much the past few days, it made Vinyl hurt deep inside. The two found a place at the back of the crowd, just as Celestia walked out onto the stage. "My loyal subjects," she began, magically amplifying her voice, "Ponyville has always been one of the most peaceful settlements in all of Equestria." The princess's eyes roamed around the crowd. "But it appears we have a disturbance in all of that peace." Trixie was then brought up to the stage, her hooves shackled together, being escorted by a huge stallion wearing a black hood. "The great and powerful Trixie," Celestia began once again, gesturing to the blue unicorn who now had her head inside of the slot at the bottom of the guillotine, "was sent here to Ponyville to murder my most faithful student, Twilight Sparkle." Right on cue, Twilight stepped up onto the stage. Twilight herself didn't look quite right. Her mane was disheveled and discolored. She had bags under her eyes and her coat was filthy. Trixie began to struggle now. "Kill her? Why would the great and powerful Trixie do that? I'm innocent! Let me go! Twilight, tell them, damn you!" she screeched. "Tell them!" She screamed at Twilight. Tears began to run down her cheeks. "Please, tell them!" she howled. "Twilight!" There was a whoosh and a dull thud. Fluttershy whimpered and hid her face in Vinyl's shoulder. Trixie's severed head rolled off of the guillotine and made a fleshy thump as it hit the grass below the stage. Blood began to pool onto the stage and drip off onto the grass. "Predetermined Celestia started, only to be interrupted by a guard galloping toward the stage. "Princess Celestia!" the guard hollered in panic. "What is it?" Celestia said, suddenly sounding very worried. Hoofington was destroyed," the guard said out of breath.
Huffington. Destroyed? By whom?
Celestia asked in shock.
The buffalo. From out west. They burned Appaloosa to the ground and attacked Huffington. Word is they're in Philadelphia right now,
the guard continued.
We must send reinforcements. We have enough power to fight off Buffalo,
Celestia said, a scroll magically appearing out of thin air and unraveling.
No, Celestia. It's not just the buffalo. They have...
The guard's face suddenly got very pale, and his eyes widened in fear.
Spit it out,
Celestia said impatiently, her horn glowing as a quill dashed back and forth across the scroll.
Dragons, princess. They have dragons. And basilisks,
the guard said shakily. The quill and scroll dropped to the floor, and Celestia stood still with her eyes wide and mouth agape.
Basilisks,
she finally said.
Yes, Your Majesty. Dragons, basilisks, cockatrices, wyverns. They've somehow managed to tame them all, the guard said.
Celestia nodded to the guard and galloped away. Vinyl hadn't noticed, but Fluttershy had turned and began to run off toward her cottage.
Fluttershy!
She called out, chasing after the Pegasus. As she neared her friend, she felt as if she were being followed. Vinyl quickly turned around, and was hit in the face with something blunt. She fell to the floor and blinked blood from her eyes. She looked up into the face of 2 EBI agents.
Your presence is requested, Agent Scratch,
one of them said, withdrawing a thin strip of cloth.
Hey, what are you...
Vinyl said, being gagged. The agents grinned as they covered her head with a sack and lifted her up onto one of their shoulders. It looked like she was going to be making an emergency visit to EBI headquarters. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed once again. Deep apologies to any and all fans of Trixie out there. I admit I was pretty shocked the first time to see her go out like that. Hope I didn't just lose viewers there. Anyway, that's the last of the short chapters. The remaining 4 now start getting super long, to the point that Chapter 9 is written in 2 parts. Chapter 9, Parts 1 and 2. I'm undecided whether I'll split them up or just string them together in a single vid and just call it Chapter 9. What do you think? Beyond that, thanks as always for listening, and I always appreciate feedback. Bye for now.